Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen. Today I'm going to make something that is from the deepest recesses of the nostalgia in the back of my brain. Julie and I were hanging out last week, and it was getting close to lunchtime. We were getting a little hungry. We're downtown Toronto. Toronto is one of those places where you can get almost any type of food from anywhere on the planet at any time. And what I really wanted was a hot hamburger sandwich. And we're sitting there, and we could not come up with a place in the city of Toronto where you could still get a hot hamburger sandwich. So I've got some ground beef here, and this is the Worcestershire sauce, or Worcestershire sauce, depending on where you live and how you want to say it, that I made back in September 2019. I never went back and thinned it out. The flavor is amazing, even though it's much thicker than the stuff that you buy in a bottle. The flavor is incredible. So I put some in there with the ground beef. Now, there's probably a lot of people out there wondering what a hot hamburger sandwich is. Isn't that just a hamburger? And it isn't. It isn't a hamburger at all. It is a hamburger. It's kind of like a Salisbury steak. I think that's the best way to explain it. It's kind of like a Salisbury steak. There's gravy. You put it on a slice of white bread. You serve it with chips and peas. And this is something that I remember going with my mom to the lunch counter at Kresge's at Thorncliffe Park and sitting down, and this is something that they would serve. Or going with my grandfather to a lunch counter in Peterborough when I was a little kid, and you'd get a hot hamburger sandwich. Just not something that's sold anymore. Or if it is, if there's somewhere in Toronto that serves a hot hamburger sandwich, please tell me about it. So I've got the ground beef, the Worcestershire sauce. I'm going to put in some pepper. I've got some dry garlic powder and some salt. Now, you could definitely spice this, flavor this meat patty any way you want. There are so many ways that you could do this. And this is somewhere that if you had a packet of Lipton onion soup mix or Nor-Leek soup mix, I would definitely throw that in here. That would be great. If you want to put in crushed up crackers or breadcrumbs in order to extend it or bind it together, that would be great. I'm going to stick with this. Pretty basic. Late 1960s, early 1970s, food here was pretty basic. Now, the best way to mix this is just get in there with your hand and mix it all together. I'm going to make 4 patties. So I'm going to make 4 evenish patties, hamburger patties. And if I had been a little bit better with my time management today, I would have made these this morning and left them in the fridge for 4 or 5 hours. That would firm them up, and they'd stick together in the pan better. Less chance of them falling apart. But I didn't, and we're just going to have to go with it. So I've got a cast iron pan on the go here. I'm going to heat that up. I'm going to put a little bit of oil in the bottom just so nothing sticks. Okay, I think that's hot enough. So in go the patties. So the goal isn't to cook these all the way through, just to brown them on both sides and build up some nice fond or browning in the bottom of the pan. Build up that flavor in the bottom of the pan to help out with the gravy that we have to make. So these are pretty much almost done. Flip them over, a little bit on this side, and then they cook the rest of the way in the gravy. So we're going to finish the cooking inside the gravy sauce. It'll be great. Okay, I'm going to pull these out onto a tray and set them aside. And to the pan, I'm going to add some sliced onion. And I want to saute these onions until they're browned. Not burnt, so you want to watch your heat. But browned and caramelized. And how deep brown and caramelized you're willing to go really affects the flavor that you're going to get in the gravy. the other part of it is, in order to really brown onions to a deep golden, sweet, flavorful, takes a long time. And I usually give up long before they get to the point where I want them to be. I sort of get to the frustration point of, that's good enough. That's good enough. Okay, that is my frustration point. Now we're going to add in a whack of mushrooms and some fresh cracked black pepper. And so the plan is just to continue sauteing this on a medium heat. My cooktop is set to 5, this cooktop goes to 10, so it's halfway. And what I want to do is just let those mushrooms now lose all of their liquid and start to caramelize in with the onions. So I think that's looking pretty good. I've got some nice golden tones in there. It smells really great. So I'm going to add a little bit of butter. Melt that in. Good. Now, I'm going to add some flour. We're essentially making a roux, so maybe a tablespoon and a half, and stir that in. And I've got some beef stock. Stir that around, scrape up all the bits on the bottom. Right, so that's coming up to a simmer, and as it comes up to a simmer, it thickens, and it's going to thicken up just about right. Every once in a while I get lucky, and I get the proportions right. It's one of those things where, yes, you could measure it right down to the gram, but every time it's going to be a little bit different anyway. So you have to sort of learn how to read the room and figure out how much. And then know, later on, if it doesn't work out, how are you going to fix it? And we'll get to that in a moment. But I'm going to put in Marmite because we're making a beef gravy, a beef and mushroom gravy. 2 teaspoons, maybe a tablespoon. We'll get that in. That's just going to bring out all kinds of big, beefy umami flavors. Okay, stir that in, and I've turned the heat way down to low at this point. Now, I've got about a tablespoon and a half of butter here, and about the same amount of flour. I'm going to start with maybe half the flour, and just with a fork, I'm going to mash this together. This is called beurre meunier. And so what we've ended up with here is a mixture of equal parts butter and flour mashed together, beurre meunier. This is the height of French white tablecloth dining kitchen experience. This is something that is used extensively in French cooking. From the earliest of the French cookbooks that I own, you see this method of finishing a sauce. So even though we did a roux, if this sauce was too loose, we'd thicken it at the end with this beurre meunier. You put it in. The idea is that the flour is coated in the fat. It doesn't clump together. It dissolves perfectly into the sauce and smooths it out, thickening it at the same time. It makes a really nice glossy sauce. I don't really need to do it this time because I got lucky and the sauce is the right thickness. But that's how you would adjust your sauce at the end. It's really easy to do. Sounds fancy, but it isn't. I should show you. Okay, so I've got an extra cup of beef stock. Oh no, my gravy's too thin. So my gravy's too thin at this point. I put in an extra cup. I've got a lot more gravy, which is great because I really like the gravy, but I need to thin it out. So I'm going to take the beurre meunier. Now this is something where you can make this, and you can roll it into a log, wrap it in plastic wrap, and stick it in your freezer, and just cut off a tablespoon at a time. Keep it in the freezer. You've always got it, and then just use it a tablespoon at a time when you need it. So I'm going to bring the heat back up a little bit. I want to have it simmering. I'm going to take that much, maybe a tablespoon and a half, and we're going to put that in, and we'll stir it until it melts, and it will thicken as it melts. And that's it. So as this sauce comes back up to a simmer, that butter flour mixture will thicken it up nicely. So back in with the patties. And now I'm just going to bring this to a simmer, and on sort of a low simmer, let it go for 15 or 20 minutes until the patties are cooked through. Okay, so I've got some oven chips. Not too many. Not too many.
Hey Glenn, hey friends.
Making a mess.
Oven chips.
Making a mess.
Are we having chip sandwiches?
No. We're having a hot hamburger plate.
Ooh! It's like going to the diner.
Yes.
Good stuff. I assume the peas are for your
Yeah.
little side here.
So the peas go on. Sorry.
I tell ya.
Hot hamburger plate. Hot hamburger. Gravy. Slice of bread.
Peas. This is great.
French fries, sometimes, or chips, and sometimes mashed potatoes, and peas, but sometimes canned mixed vegetables, which are peas, corn, and carrots.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, look at that. Okay, so let's fix up this last one.
I'm like all super excited, like I've gone to the diner, but I am gonna need a fork.
Fork. And
Maybe a knife.
maybe a knife. Maybe a knife.
A knife would be helpful. Okay.
Now, I made the gravy the thickness that I like it. If you want it thicker,
Oh, careful.
if you want it thicker, make it thicker. You just adjust it with the beurre meunier.
There's no speaking.
No.
A little mushroom. Oh. Peas. Oh.
Okay, so if I could open a restaurant, it would open in the morning. We'd serve eggs, corned beef hash, bacon. We'd be open at lunchtime. We'd serve this, maybe a meatloaf, and a hot turkey sandwich. And by 2 o'clock,
Maybe some shepherd's pie.
maybe shepherd's pie. By 2 o'clock, we'd be closed. To me, that's a lunch counter or a diner. That's all you need.
I'm very happy.
That's really good. Okay.
Okay, stop eating. Tell us what you need to know.
We mentioned shepherd's pie.
Cottage pie.
It could be cottage pie,
Yeah.
depending on the meat. But here in North America, shepherd's pie is what it's called, no matter what the meat is. This is something else that I think of as don't waste your time wondering what the real recipe is. Play with the ingredients. Spice your meat patties differently. Spice your gravy differently. This would be great with lamb in a curry sauce.
I don't know about that lamb, but you
Okay,
know.
so Julie doesn't like the lamb, but
The
I
curry
think
sauce would
I
be
think this
great.
would be great with lamb in a curry sauce.
It'd be great with the Tex-Mex theme.
Be fantastic with a Tex-Mex thing. It would, like, there's so many ways that you could take this jerk pork patties with a lightly jerk gravy. Like, it would just be, play with it. Play with it.
The flavors you like,
The flavors
throw it
you
in.
like. Yeah. Don't be beholden to some idea that there's only one way to make a hot hamburger sandwich, because there isn't. Okay, I'm gonna go sit down and eat.
All right.
Okay. Thanks for stopping by. See you again
I
soon.
just said you forgot something. I'm so excited. Settle down.